Welcome to the Penny Bloom Podcast. Ain't another place that has got more bombast. Romp past your mom, dad's listening to Tomcats. Talking everything that make you sad. We don't want that. We're here to make you smile. Put your mind at ease. Peace, love, and bloom, and always praise Keanu Reeves. This what we about. This some weeding now. We'll talk until we can't no more, and then we peacing out. Alright, let's go. Penny Bloom Podcast. It's the Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast. It's the Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast.
Beautiful. Hello, everybody. Welcome in to the Penny Bloom Podcast. It is I, Colton Robertson, and today we continue our journey through comic book film. As always, I am joined by Joseph George. What's up, homie?
Oh, what up, what up? Always a pleasure to be here.
Oh, and it is always a pleasure to have you. And for the first time on this project and for the first time on this podcast, I am joined by a very special guest, my father, Justin Robertson. What's up?
Gentlemen, thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I'm just excited to pod.
Oh, and I'm excited to pod with you. We've got a hell of a show today. We've got ruckus about the house. It's a perfect time for such things. Howard the Duck. Howard the Duck. It's a movie that exists. And, I feel surprisingly good about it. Why I'm excited to have my dad here is because he was 9 years old when this movie came out. He was the movie's target audience at the time the movie was released.
I was actually going to ask that, what the target audience was.
Well, that's a good question. I think it's interesting because, looking back, I think at the time we all thought I was the target audience. On a rewatch, I should not have been the target audience,
No, you should not have. Because we kicked this movie off, we got duck titties in the mix. We've got Satan Sluts, the biker gang, straight out the gate. I was, what's interesting though is that's something I also noticed through our 52-year journey through film, that project last year, is that when we were in the older movies, the movies that were marketed like Spaceballs, I think was rated PG.
Wow. I guess this is 86. It is a different time.
Yeah, they probably took a few more liberties. I also think that, when you're that young, a lot of that stuff goes over your head anyway. Now, obviously, the duck titties I probably just thought was, that's funny.
Duck titties.
Yeah, but some of the language probably it just didn't even register. But
yeah, when you're little, you manage to block a lot of that stuff out. Like me and Emily are actually rewatching That 70s Show right now, and I watched That 70s Show for the first time when I was our Griffin's age or younger, probably about 12, 11. I probably shouldn't have been watching that show when I was 11 or 12. There's these scenes where they all get in a circle and there's smoke in the air and they're talking like they're all baked. And at the time I was just like, man, I love when they go to the circle. I have no idea why, but this is fun. Now I absolutely get what's going on there. But what I'm what was most intriguing about this movie is me and my dad watched separately so as to not discuss it as it was happening.
Okay.
Trying to avoid that a little bit.
Uh-huh.
And I was expecting a much worse movie than the one I watched.
Oh, dude. I was expecting this to be the worst movie on our list, without a doubt going into it. I mean, it's just it's a duck. And I don't know. We've had Batman and Superman, right? And then I just hear Howard the Duck. So I'm going in having zero expectations whatsoever.
And so for you two, was it based on that? Just knowing that, okay, it's just it's a duck. It's filmed in 86, and that was enough for you guys to go, oh God, this thing's going to be awful. Or had you heard, you know what I mean? Had you done anything I probably didn't get a lot of talk, Howard the Duck. I know that they've introduced him in more recent years and everything, but was that enough for you guys to be like, this is going to fucking suck?
It was kind of the production value and cause here's the thing, at the time too, this is it's not revolutionary or anything, but it's rather groundbreaking. I mean, this is George Lucas produced.
True.
I don't know if you knew this, but
that was nuts to see at the beginning. I'm like,
Yeah.
honestly, that's the biggest thing for me. The reason I thought it was going to suck was just because I've never heard of it, really. I
Right.
think. Like, I've never heard of it, and I'm like, okay. Like, if I've never heard of it, and it's, it's so out there. Like, it's not even that, like, I've heard a little bit of it, or that I've even gotten a hint of Howard the Duck, really. I didn't even make the connection that he was in the newer movies, and that this was the same character. I thought that the new one was just a random duck. I had no idea that it was an established character.
Yeah, well, that's what's crazy is, and the establishment of this character didn't come until about 10 years before this movie. It was in the mid-70s that Howard the Duck was introduced into Marvel Comics, and what I kind of laid out for us in the comic book previews was like his first appearance, which it's funny enough, he was actually a side character for The Man-Thing, which is another movie from 2005 that maybe we cover, maybe we don't know, but it's he was a very, very minor character that was introduced as a spoof of Donald Duck of Disney. And because Man-Thing's going through the multiverse and he's going to all these different worlds, and there's a bunch of spoof characters, like ones of Conan the Barbarian and ones of like stuff like that, and Howard the Duck is the spoof of Donald Duck, and They introduce a lot of elements from the comics, whenever we learn that he's a master of quack fu.
Mm-hmm.
His third issue of solo titles was the Master of Quack Fu. Pretty legit. The dollar bills with little duck faces on them, little George Washington bucks.
It's a little condom in there too.
Condom.
Oh, dude, it's like a little finger caught. Like it was kind of what it looked like,
Well, and the thing about that condom is it wasn't in a wrapper.
That's true.
The condom was the other thing. I was trying to think of what like went over my head. I mean, being a 9-10-year-old, like I didn't even know what it was, and likely just didn't even question it because whatever. I don't care. I don't know what that is. But yeah, the little tiny duck condom isn't even in he isn't using that. He's not going to be able to use that.
Unsanitary. Yeah.
It is extremely.
Unless ducks don't care about that, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, perhaps. I mean, I didn't know. To your point, Joseph, like that. I only knew it from my perspective of being 10. Like, I didn't know it was a Marvel thing. Colton was the one that told me it was Marvel. I'm like, why are you guys doing, because I knew you guys were working on the same, like, type of stuff. I'm like, well, what's Howard the Duck got to do with it? And it blew my mind that it was a Marvel thing. Like, so, it's hilarious.
And the first substantial Marvel movie at that. This is the first Marvel movie we've covered on our project so far. And now Marvel is obviously the biggest film franchise ever.
Mm-hmm. Next is Blade. The next.
And we don't get another one till 1999. So, big old gap between the Marvel movies, but we don't get 13-year gaps between Marvel movies anymore. More like 13 days.
Who better to start the MCU than Howard the Duck? I mean, come on. Like it's almost poetic at this point. And I'm not gonna lie. Like I wasn't disappointed with the movie. Like I actually really enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would.
And what's funny is the movie doesn't really get like, oh, okay, yeah, this is a pretty bad movie until about the back half of the movie, like the last 45 to 50 minutes. Whenever the super villain makes his appearance,
it gets a little super girly, like a little, the villain becomes absolutely what? That's where we're taking this, Okay, fair enough.
But like, it makes more sense with this movie to take it there because it's Howard the Duck. Of course, we're going to get like absolutely outrageous with this thing. What's crazy is that this movie actually has a better romance than Supergirl did, and it's a human and a duck. So
dang, that is sadly true. Like
at least this one, it wasn't like a mind control thing that was going on. It was Beverly, that's another comics based character, made her first appearance in Howard the Duck #1. So like they maintained a lot of it. She was introduced in a much different way. I actually really liked Beverly in this movie. It was one of my favorite characters in the mix.
And old Phil being a little Shawshank.
Philzy.
Cameo here. Yeah. Andy Dufresne.
Andy Dufresne.
Andy Dufresne.
Andy Dufresne. And I think that he, even in that, even with the production value and the cast he was in, like, I think he showed his chops as an actor, honestly, compared to everyone else. I mean, Leah Thompson is a good actress, but I mean, obviously, you know, Robbins goes on to great things. And I think that you can actually see that in his performance in a way, like even with the absurdity of the movie and everything that was going around him. I mean, I think I actually have him as, you know, I know we do this prep for it, and I have him as I believe, my favorite performance.
Okay.
Just because I thought that his, actually, forgive me, I listed Beverly first, but I also put Filzy because I thought Filzy did some stuff. The reason I put Beverly, sorry to go off on this tangent, but for the performance, I felt like Beverly was like doing the best with what she had.
Oh,
and she was coming off of, you know, Back to the Future. She was coming off of a movie called All the Right Moves with Craig T. Nelson, Tom Cruise. You know, she had done one other movie. It eludes me now. I can't think of it, but I mean, she was legit, you know, and, in preparing for this, I read some different things where she, you know, she wanted the role really, really bad. And then it didn't take her long to realize during production that it just, man, maybe this isn't it, you know?
I would have, as soon as I read that script and realize that I might be the romantic interest for a duck, I think I probably passed that role up.
Wild.
But yeah, Leah Thompson was ultimately what I landed on as my favorite performance too, because she has so many scenes where she is opposite a duck costume.
Yes.
And like, I really, really enjoyed her in this movie, you know, like I don't have any beef with Beverly in this movie beyond the, you know, we're in the diner and all the chaos is breaking loose, which I have as my favorite scene, the Cajun sushi diner, where everything is letting loose, everything's going crazy. And, she gets the mob to stop for a second because she goes, "That's my boyfriend." And I was like,
they were like,
hilarious.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's without a doubt she has the best performance of the movie. Just because, like, I think she gets it without a doubt. But I'll give Chip Zien
This guy.
Zien for voicing Howard the Duck. No, I'll just give like the voice actor for Howard the performance nod, because I don't know, he actually got like his mask. Like, he doesn't really have facial emotion, really.
No.
You know, like that you can, like, give, like, a human face, or even, like, Yoda had, like, a little bit of, like, emotion that could be controlled in his face. But really, there's, like, such minimal movement that, like, it has to be done in the voice. So, like, I don't know.
Right.
You gotta give it to him there. I think, like, Leah Thompson takes, you know, if there's going to be an award given for, like, a performance, like, yeah, I'm not going to give it to the voice actor, I don't think, but I think he deserves a little bit of recognition for it.
You know, I mean, to your point, the face didn't, like, the duck bill didn't move. And you know, when you're talking about who did the voice, interesting. I got a few pieces of interesting tidbits for you guys. Do y'all know who the original voice over person actor was, cast, and actually worked on the movie for a few weeks and then was like, I can't do it?
No, who?
Robin Williams.
Holy
As
shit.
Howard?
As Howard. And it makes sense, right? Because he was, you know, the way as a performer, it makes sense that it wouldn't work for him, going back to your point, Joseph, about the face didn't move, the bill didn't move. And so because of that, a lot of his zany, you know, how he'd throw his voice in different ways, and, you know, the cadence of his voice, he'd switch it up so much. He literally was like, I can't do this. I'm being limited because this duck's mouth won't move, and I can't do my best. So, so he quit, and that's how the other gentleman ended up getting a phone call.
I mean, going from Robin Williams to Chip Zien, what probably wasn't the most encouraging thing for that production staff.
Dang, that would have made this movie so different. Oh wait,
what a loss we took.
Yeah, no kidding.
Wait, it said, Chip Zien as the voice, but then Tim Rose as Howard the Duck, and that's General
He's probably
Akbar?
in the costume. Yeah. He's Admiral Akbar in the Star Wars movies.
Admiral.
Right.
What?
It was interesting because you know how on Prime, if you kind of scroll down while the movie's playing, it'll tell you what actors are playing each character. and I randomly hit pause or scrolled down at one point, and I don't know, I meant to do some research on this, but there was literally 4 actors listed, and they were all listed as Howard the Duck. So I don't know how that happened.
Wait.
So there obviously was someone physically playing him. There was also the voice. I don't know. There were like 4 different names that were associated with Howard the Duck for some reason.
Yeah, there's Chip Zien is the voice, and then you have 6 people that are credited for Howard the Duck.
Oh, wow.
Ed Gale.
That's one I saw. Yep, that's one I saw.
Yeah. And then let's see, Peter Bard, Baird, Lisa
Baird.
Stirs, Mary Wells, and Steve Sleep are all credited for
There's
Howard
also
the Duck,
the
as well
fact
as
that
Tim Rose.
there's a really good chance, given the way that a lot of these puppet type costumes worked at the time, that there are probably multiple people literally working the facial features that are like when he does blink and when he does move his duck bill. It's probably like the person inside the costume probably isn't literally doing all of that.
What if he had a stunt guy too? Would the stunt person be credited for being Howard?
Oh,
if
that's
there was a little
probably
person
true.
that could rock some of those stunts.
That's
Almost
probably
certainly.
true.
I mean, and Howard the Duck has some pretty kick-ass stunts in this movie. The opening whenever he he saves Beverly from the 2 potential assaulters. That's something that I've also caught on to very early on in these movies, is that there is a woman in these early superhero movies. They are going to be approached in a non-consensual manner, and the hero is going to have to stop that from happening.
There is a 100% chance that 2 men will come up to a woman on the street late at night and try to sexually assault them. If it is, I don't know, I guess we'll have to find where that ends in movies.
Well, what's interesting is that, like, at least they're very clearly drawing a moral boundary where, like, that's like, okay, well, obviously the hero has to intervene here. And, the way Howard's like, this duck has reached his limit,
I guess it is the classic intervention, guy saving girl from to other guy. I guess it's, that's how it happens in the comic books. It's a
damsel in distress.
You always find yourself in a situation that, you wouldn't normally. So,
I usually do this. I usually do this much earlier, but we jumped right in. I wanted to lay out the release date, the director, writer, and stuff. This was released on August 1st, 1986. It was based off the comics by Steve Gerber, written by Gloria Katz and Willard Huyck, and directed by Willard Huyck. And if you are a Star Wars fan or a Lucasfilm fan, those are names you're massively familiar with, as they wrote American Graffiti along with George Lucas, and they wrote Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. They've written plenty from those minds over at Lucasfilm, and probably not the best Indiana Jones movie, but American Graffiti is a damn good film, and it was our 1973 movie on our 52-year journey through film. So a nice little connection for us there.
Mm-hmm.
But
the Indiana Jones poster, but it was Duck, or I forgot what the name was, but it got a little, we did Indiana Jones as well.
Absolutely got a few real world, the rolling egg.
Yeah, Duck World. I forgot about good old, starting the movie off in Duck World or whatever their planet was called.
Got a few moons. I mean, right off the bat, there's 2 moons. You're like, what's going on?
Yeah, true.
But I mean, it seemingly was a planet literally where it was just like ours, only ducks.
Only ducks. Only
Yeah,
ducks.
that's what
And
Dilsey
what's
says,
also interesting is it's not a parallel universe or anything where we just happen to all be ducks. It's like if you go deep enough into outer space, there will be an egg-shaped planet that is called Duck World. Not like Duck Earth or anything, because he's like, Cleveland. All right. What a great name for this strange planet. That was a pretty much ripped from the comic books too. His first place where he touches down on Earth is Cleveland. So that was Houston. Bunch of Superman, Supergirl. And what's funny is we have covered Batman 66, Superman 78, Superman 2, Superman 3, and Supergirl. And this might fall, enjoyment-wise for me, top 3.
Yeah,
I'm not even going to cap with you. Like, this was, I had a really fun time watching this, but there's this thing where last week our beef with Supergirl was like, the movie took itself so seriously, but was so bad. You can tell this movie knew what it was, knew it was probably not the best, and they eventually steer into it, it feels like. Whereas Supergirl, it was like, oh yeah, you're really trying for something here, and it is just not landing.
Yeah. No, this was definitely way better of a watching experience than Supergirl or Superman 3. And it would have to beat out Batman 66 to be in the top 3, and I honestly think it does.
I think I rewatched this movie before I rewatched those.
It's insane to me that like Batman 66, something where like I know the character of Batman, I know all of these villains, like, but I'm more entertained by a duck that I've never heard of before whatsoever, and I thought was gonna be like the most shitty movie like of all time coming into it, and I'm like, no, like I think it's definitely in the top 3. It's definitely not middle of the road.
Is the question there? Okay, is that praise? Is that more praise for Howard the Duck or an indictment of Batman? You know what I mean? I mean, like to your point, like wow. Fair. They have all these characters you're already familiar with, and that you are looking forward to seeing, and they miss the mark that much. That's pretty rough.
Yeah, well, that's what's interesting though. Is like again, like the Supergirl thing. It was made for different purposes. Like Batman 66 had more in common with Howard the Duck than I think Supergirl did, as far as knowing what it was and steering completely into it. So like that's another thing, is that it wasn't necessarily like a theatrical release or anything. It was like the precursor, or not the precursor, but the result of a TV show that had been seeing success. It was also 1966, so it was just a different time for the way children's movies were made in general. It was very propagandic. It was very just like, oh, don't drink, kids. You're not gonna see any success in life if you drink. But I'll save them because I save everybody. You know, I'm Batman. Howard the Duck gets to be the drinker. He gets to be the one who's smoking hoagies and stuff. Like he's just having a good fucking time, and it makes this a really enjoyable viewing experience. Now,
what did
I will
he
not
used
necessarily
to be? What was his old, like before he got his good job? Was he a singer, or was like a songwriter or something like that? Like, what was his lore? You know, like his life before his boring job. I forgot he was.
Oh yeah, he had because he was on the cover of that Rolling Egg, was he not? Like, was that?
Advertising. Oh no, he became an advertiser. That's right, because he had like some perfume or cologne. He was like, smell blah 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 blah, and like did the whole advertising. But he did right. I think he was like in a band or something like that before.
I love looking through the pictures on IMDb because it's relatively in order.
Yeah,
and they like
seeing him get blasted through space. You know,
yeah,
that was. I don't know. It puts you right in the seat of like, all right, here's what to expect from the movie. We're on Duck World now. We got blasted from one end of space to the other. You don't know even how that happened. You just saw him go from his living room on Duck World to Earth.
Yeah, and it was only him. It wasn't like a planet destroying occurrence.
Right. It's kind of later revealed how it happens. And so he gets blasted to Earth, and you're like, why is he so calm? You know, like he lands, he's just cool. You know, he's chill. He's
hairless.
Why does he go to an employment office? Like what drove him to, like, you know what? I'm gonna go look for a job. How does he even get a job? Like what? I mean, all those things are like going through your mind. And then, how does he have such great game with Leah Thompson? You know, I mean, the dude, he's kind of like player. A little legend. Yeah, I mean, he's kind of a little legend, but
he's a G. He's a G. There's no question. Like, whenever the chicks are performing on stage, and we got the typical douchebag dudes who are in the audience, who are their managers, who are taking the money from them, and he goes and confronts them about it. I was like, oh, fuck yeah. This is one of the best parts of the movie, when they slide him down the bar and then he climbs back on top and he makes his way back down. I was like, oh, it's about to go down. You don't want to fuck with Howie when he's angry.
Yeah, this dude's badass. I mean, he is a master in duck foo, obviously, but no inherent superpowers, And good old Philsy tested him out. He's like, can you bend this? Can you melt it with your
with
eyeballs,
your heat vision,
yeah.
heat vision. Can you read my mind? Can you see the future? And that's another thing that makes this a fun place to start with, like Marvel movies in general, is that it's not like it is a outlandish story, but it's not necessarily a superhero movie. He's just a duck dude.
Man. And he's just a duck. He knows how to take care of himself. I mean, he's no ordinary duck. Well, I guess he kind of is. I guess I don't know. It's kind of.
Yeah, is he an alien? Would we call him an alien? I mean,
that's what he was charged
another
for.
planet. Yeah,
being an illegal alien. That was the charges brought against him.
Right.
Well, what's also really fascinating about this movie, and the direction I almost wish they would have gone, is like they were already pretty anti-cop, which was kind of funny. I thought was hilarious. I think they could have made this whole movie where the cops were the antagonist, and instead of the supervillain who destroyed I think it would have been funny if when we get taken to the Ray and he's like, yeah, we're fixing it up, and then it crashes and it starts breaking down and stuff, and everyone's like, oh no, what's going on? I think it would have been really funny if just then it was like, yep, that's it, can't go back to Duck World, and the rest of the time it's maybe the police take Leah Thompson in, kept under contempt. She's she's
aiding and abetting an illegal alien. A terrorist.
She literally steals a cop's gun and points it at him. That's a heavy charge, you're coming with there. I think it would have been funny if she got taken in and then Howie's mission the rest of the movie was trying to break her out of prison. I think that would have been I think I would have been left in a little bit more of a critically better place, because they make it so outlandish, and I'm gonna love it because it's Howard the Duck and it's supposed to be stupid as hell, but
for some reason, the villain that we got, or I guess whoever played Dr. Jennings first, that actor, what else is he in? Is he
Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
Is that what I know him in?
He's the principal.
Yeah, but there's something.
Thinking of something
about
else.
This guy's
I feel
face.
like
I'm with Joe. He looks like somebody, but he's not him. Because I had the exact same problem. I feel like it's like a Harry Potter type thing, or somewhere in that realm.
Oh, you're right there. You're on the right track. If Harry Potter sounds right, maybe that's what I was thinking.
Because I recognized the mustache and the balding head. I feel like he was red hair. I can't remember who it was though. I gotta find it now. Because he looks just like him. He's not him. He's definitely not, but he looks a lot like him.
Kind of a doppelganger, because that dude he's a quintessential 80s actor for sure.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's
he
probably
was
from an
also
older movie is what I was thinking of. Is it a movie that we've covered, I feel like, in our 52-year journey through film?
You done Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
We did not.
No.
Do
not. Okay. That's I mean, I keep going back to that. That's really the only one I can think of off the top of my head. I know he's been.
Maybe that's it.
Shit.
Maybe that's what
he was in Deadwood for you too.
Oh, he was in Deadwood. He was outstanding in Deadwood. Well, I mean,
that's good.
That's just a great show. But yes, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, he was the journalist. He's the dude that ran the paper in Deadwood.
He was in Beetlejuice in '88.
Beetlejuice, of course. Yes.
Man, yeah, he was in some shit.
Yeah, he did some shit. Yeah.
Maybe it is Ferris Bueller that I'm recognizing him from.
I can't wait till one day I see the picture of the guy I'm thinking of, because I can't even place exactly what he's in. But man,
dude, I know
it just looks like him.
It's not him. I already came to this conclusion, but
it's more recent. It's more recent.
I believe it's more recent.
Feels like it. Okay. Well, damn.
It does. I wonder if we are thinking of the same person.
I know we're thinking of the same person. I just cannot place it, because as soon as you started talking about how he looked familiar, but you couldn't place it, you were just speaking directly to my soul, because the whole time I was like, oh, he looks just like somebody, and I can't figure it out.
It's a dad, a character's dad that's a dick for some reason is what I feel like the character he plays as. It could be that or something completely different.
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't tell you, but he, he had a pretty difficult job in this movie as an actor. This whole slow progression into this disgusting little monster. There's not a single actor on earth I think could pull this off and make me believe that they're any good in the role.
Yeah, he had his work cut out. What was it? The Dark Overlord? Isn't that what he was?
The Dark Overlord.
Yeah. and his transition is slow, and it I mean, look, there's a certain level of leniency. I think, at least me, having lived it, like in retro, there's a certain amount of leniency I now give the absurdity of many 80s movies. And I think you guys probably get that too, even though it's not looking back for you guys, it's something new, but you look at like, yeah, this is 80s. Yeah, this is like right? I mean,
oh, absolutely. And I'm so glad you brought this up because we've covered Superman 2, Superman 3, Supergirl, and now Howard the Duck, all of which came out in the 80s.
Yeah.
None of them are 80s movies the way Howard the Duck is an 80s movie. It just has that, like the neon lights and Leah Thompson's apartment and like the way everyone's dressed and the hairstyle she's rocking the whole movie. There's something about it, the spirit of it, that's just so typical 80s movie,
100%.
which is another thing that lent it to being more enjoyable than some of those other movies we watched, is that because it recognized the era it existed in so clearly and was willing to kind of bank on that aesthetic. And I thought it was, that was one of the things I was surprised about with this movie, is that I quite enjoyed the way it looked a lot of the time.
Yeah, they nailed the 80s. I mean, 100%. They nailed the time, and what was, I mean, and that was one of the thoughts I had watching it, was like, man, this is just everything that particular time was. I mean, like from the makeup to the outfits to just the song Howard the Duck. I mean, that song was everywhere, dude. That song was everywhere, and that is an 80s song. Like just the synth and everything about it,
Gosh.
And that's her, actually. All the singing that's done in the movie, and you can tell. I mean, she does a pretty good job. That's Leah Thompson singing.
Yeah, I was watching the credits, and when they got to the Howard the song section of the credits, it was performed by Leah Thompson, and I was like, okay, she did it all on her own. I thought that was fucking awesome. But yeah, there's surprisingly a lot to like about this movie for me.
Yeah. Well, and how we got to the leniency, right, of like how we like, hey, we're going to take it easy, is, you were talking about the Dark Overlord and his slow transition, right? And it was just so crazy when, he determines he's going to be able to charge himself through the fucking old school cigarette lighter in the fucking truck. And that thing comes out of his mouth. And it's like, man, it's just what is going on, And then he goes to literally a nuclear power plant after that when he's getting weak, and just like, I'm gonna take this detour. I need power.
Dresses in one of the visitor jackets and he does the whole thing.
The reactor room is just a white room full of power that he just soaked it all up in, and then walked out, blew through the wall, and was on his way.
Yeah, and all those dudes are like just thinking, well, that guy's just a little weird. Yeah. I'm like, look at him, dude.
That's that was my favorite thing about the treatment of this villain, is like specifically, again, in that diner scene at the Cajun sushi place, whenever he's like he explodes the ketchup and mustard bottles and stuff, Howard starts getting taken away. The way Leah Michele treats him the rest of the scene is so funny, because she treats him like he's just a slight inconvenience, like, geez, this guy's at it again. She's not frightened of anything.
He went through a work injury. He's doing his thing. Just don't worry about him. It's all
his
good.
eyes started glowing and she went, geez.
Here he goes again.
Okay.
Dude's back on his bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. That was one of my favorite things about it.
I mean, I guess it wouldn't really be the first thing in my mind to think that a dark overlord has taken over his body, though. I guess he did blow up a ketchup and mustard bottle, though, and his eyes were glowing, so maybe at that point I'd be like, okay, there's something going on here that's a little fishy. But
my powers are growing.
I love that, like, he reaches full power in that diner. Like, he doesn't have to do shit. He just keeps sitting there, and slowly, sure enough, it all starts working out for him. And the way the mob is just attacking Howard that whole time, and the dude who's like leading the charge, like ready to go fight this dude who just blew up shit with his mind. Like, that's another thing I love about these classic 80s movies, is that they're unafraid of the superhuman protagonist or superhuman entity who is clearly exhibiting massive amounts of superpowers, and you're like, you know what? I could take this guy with a bat.
Wow, checking what awards this movie was nominated for. It was only nominated at 2 different award shows, the Razzie Awards and the Stinkers Bad Movie Awards.
Oh man.
It won the Worst Picture Stinker Award.
It was nominated for Worst Picture of the Decade.
Wow. The decade.
I mean, that's strong. And what's funny is I was talking to your mom about the movie, and it's funny because she remembers it so positively, like I did too. She was like, "Oh, that movie was huge." I mean, that movie was, I'm like, "Nah, I guess everybody hated it." And like everything you read, everybody hated it, and it didn't do well at the box office. So it's like the success it built was more of following its release. You know what I mean? Like, I read somewhere where it did $38 million worldwide, and they put more cost. I mean, it cost more to make it and to distribute it and to advertise and the signage and everything. They had 40+ million in it. So it was a bust, but people remember it differently. Like I love that your mom was like, "Oh, that movie was huge." I'm like, well, I thought so too, but evidently no.
Well, I think it's important that you guys were kids at the time too, because like it happens modernly where the kids, like specifically with the Star Wars sequel trilogy, kids fucking love those movies. They don't know that people who are critics are bashing that. Like people who are critics and the adults don't like it. But something at the end of the day that a lot of people just got to realize is that if you're an adult watching a kid's movie, it's actually not exactly for you. Maybe you're not supposed to like it.
Right.
Yeah,
now this is a
rated PG and it made 15 million. That's just the USA.
Yeah, domestically, right?
It took 36 million to make it, was the budget for the movie.
That's a really, really big loss. But George Lucas, he'd done all three of the first Star Wars movies by this time. He was looking good.
I feel like this is the perfect time for my next little tidbit. No, if you're ready. Okay, so he was coming off so much success, right? Obviously, right?
All the indie movies and
yeah. So he so following those, he was banking on Howard the Duck to be a huge success, because the story goes that he was in debt after, like in between the Star Wars movies and this and the Indiana Jones, because he'd spent about $50 million in building the Skywalker Ranch production facility, right? So he was hoping Howard the Duck would get him out of that debt. Didn't happen, lost money. So since it wasn't able to do that, he had to sell some of his assets. One of those assets was a newly launched computer animation studio,
Pixar,
that he sold to Steve Jobs, that would eventually become Pixar. Yeah. What drove him to sell that was it was an asset that he had. He was in debt, and the movie didn't do what it needed to do to get his ass out of debt, so he sold that asset.
That's funny, because I actually listened to a whole like secret history of Star Wars book where it was basically an autobiography of George Lucas's career, and they went into that part of his career where after the original trilogy and in building the Skywalker Ranch, he put so much money into that every movie that came out, he was banking on it making $100 million.
Wow.
He was always wanting movies to make that much money, which is frankly not an incredible business strategy.
You're telling me if Howard the Duck if it would have popped off, then Pixar might have still been George Lucas's doing. Like if Howard the Duck actually did well.
Revisionist history, yeah.
So if I am ever given the capability to time travel and tweak one thing in history, I'm going to go back and make sure that Howard the Duck succeeds. Just to see what would happen, maybe.
We've gotten a lot of great shit from Pixar, though.
Does that even, maybe that like ripples Apple completely? Like Apple doesn't even pop off as much as they do.
Yeah, think of the butterfly effect. Yeah, absolutely.
This movie could have been a true Nexus event of, a true, I don't know, time changing. I had no idea. Wow, that it kind of caused George to sell Pixar. That's insane.
Well, yeah, in selling all of his assets. And this is something that you would like to not be revised, because in selling all of his assets and then watching Jurassic Park, it made him realize he could make the prequel trilogy of Star Wars happen. So he finally dumped all his money that he'd earned from selling those assets into the next trilogy of Star Wars movies, and that paid off for him in a way that nothing else had up to that point.
I mean, really, if you think about it, it worked out good for everybody, right? I mean, Disney, Pixar ended up good. Steve Jobs did pretty well, and George Lucas did pretty well. I mean,
ultimately, Ashton Kutcher benefits from that Steve Jobs success. Goes on to play Steve Jobs.
Of course.
Wow. On the suit itself, $2 million was spent on the suit, and 8 different actors worked inside of the costume.
There you go with all the credits then. Yeah.
It says that Ed Gale ended up performing most of the major scenes as Howard. So he's the main guy, I guess. But $2 million on that suit. That's insane.
That's nuts. Especially for what time it was.
Yeah.
It's not like an Iron Man suit or like a Batman. It's a duck costume. I don't know. That's just hilarious that their big budget for the suit that they had, it's just a duck.
And that's what's hilarious is that this was $2 million. I don't know that it was worth it.
For sure.
I feel like they almost could have. They almost could have made this for every bit of half.
I don't know. That's the thing is that at first when I first saw it, I'm like, oh my god, this is ridiculous. No way am I going to get used to it as the movie goes on. It will always look ridiculous, but kind of got used to it. I'm like, yeah, that's just Howard.
Howard.
No movement whatsoever, but it's just the movie was so ridiculous that it just played it. Everything around the movie was so much more ridiculous that him as a duck wasn't ridiculous enough. The bar was set so high that his costume was just second nature at some point. True
enough.
So I don't know. Maybe the 2 million was worth it. I can't say it's well spent, but maybe there's something.
Interestingly enough, Ed Gale having played most of the in costume parts of this movie. This was his first credit in film as an actor. His second was, in fact, Spaceballs, where he played a character named Dink, which I do not recall. But
was Dink the R2-D2 knockoff?
That's what I'm assuming he was. That's what I was gonna guess.
Spaceballs Dink.
Oh, you know what? There were little guys that rescued them in the desert.
It was the Jawas. It was the sand people.
And they would go ding, ding, ding. That's how they spoke, right?
Yes.
Yes.
You
sand
got that.
people
yep, that's it.
Equivalent. Yeah. Yeah, they were basically Oompa Loompas, but sand people. So
and then they bring him to brought him to Mel Brooks's Yoda knockoff. I believe it was Yogurt. Wow, what a film that is.
Spaceballs is iconic. I know that's not on the agenda today, but Spaceballs is...
We should have had you on for that one. That was our 1987 movie.
That's outstanding. Speed. I mean,
I remember when you introduced me to that movie when I was very young, and I was like, that was another example of a movie where I was like, looking back, I'm like, wow, yeah, I guess I did watch this when I was about, I don't know, 8 or 9. Which is just hilarious. I remember very distinctly a part of that movie that, when we discussed it and wow, this is PG, there's a part of the movie where Mel Brooks is under the covers with 2 women, and then someone bursts into the room and he has to, they raise above the covers, and it's like, oh, yeah, they were up to some nefarious activity under there. But, that's what's funny is I don't think Spaceballs is that far out of the realm of discussion when we're talking about this movie, because they're both so outrageous. And what's funny is that this movie takes itself obviously a little bit more seriously. Spaceballs was just very obviously a ploy for merchandise. There's a whole section of the film dedicated to them actually selling the merchandise
Mel Brooks
they made for it. Yeah, Mel Brooks is ridiculous, but this movie benefits from taking itself a little bit more seriously, which is hilarious, in comparison to Spaceballs. It'll be interesting when we come to the rating, which I don't know. Are you guys ready for that?
I think so. Yeah, did want to. My favorite shot, I haven't said quite yet, was his guitar solo whenever he was on stage and he was their new manager.
Yes.
And he was just, he was getting it. That was
he was
sick.
Shredding with his duck bill and stuff.
And then my favorite scene is your favorite shot. And that's, of I only know him as Andy Dufresne. Filzy and Howard were flying in the little makeshift plane that they found to escape the cops.
That was one of the parts of the movie that made me go, oh yeah, George Lucas put money into this part, because like, that I could just imagine him on set being like, yeah, we need this to be a little bit more, fast, more intense, really get the motion in the background,
Yeah, I had that one too. For my favorite shot, I went with literally just because I thought it was hilarious. When they pull up to the restaurant, the scientist is starting to, what's his name again? The doctor,
Jennings.
Yes, yeah, he's starting to do his change, and they get out and it pans up to the restaurant sign, and it says, Joe Roma's Cajun Sushi, and like the sushi is obviously blocking another word, and I just thought that is really when it hit me, like, dude, that pan up that way is so 80s, and the look of the sign, it really took me back there. And then the scene, basically the entire scene where they're flying to rescue Beverly, just the action of it and the hilarity of it, and he goes after the duck hunters. He drags Phil through the water after the little loop-de-loop. He went through the train and knocked the wings off. That was probably my favorite scene. And what came from that too, from around that same time, is you realize that not only can he not fly because he doesn't have wings, he can't swim. Remember him saying that? So this is a duck. This duck can't fucking fly or swim.
He's more man than duck.
I thought that was hilarious.
He's really just a man who looks like a duck.
Yeah, he's so really just Howard.
Well, what's funny is most men can swim.
True.
So like he can't even do some things a human can do.
But he can have a particle whatever gun and blast a Dark Lord into the Shadow Realm. I don't know what happened to him there, but
yeah, he handled himself.
Full 80s action hero right there for Howard the Duck in that moment. I fucking loved that. But another one of my favorite parts of the movie, I didn't take this down or anything, but whenever the cop's like, how am I supposed to advertise a manhunt for a duck? And they'd like been talking earlier in the movie about how it's duck season and it's time to go hunting. He's like, it's a duck hunt, sir. He was like, fuck you.
Oh yeah, he flies super low to all the duck hunters and knocks them all in the water.
Yeah.
They all fall the same exact way as they're all like, I don't know. And so many people are duck hunting out there too. It's insane that he found that many people out there, but hey, good on him. He flipped the tides. He won this round.
Won this battle. I think my favorite line from the movie that just kind of summed up the whole movie was the last one, where he was like, not bad for a duck from outer space. I was like, yep, you really encapsulated what this whole fucking movie was, didn't you there?
I like that.
Yeah, the outrageousness of the idea of a duck from outer space being here, and people were doubting him for some reason because he's a duck from outer space, so.
He used that to his advantage, actually, in the beginning. He was like, yep, space rabies. I bite you once and it's insta-death, or 15 seconds. Space rabies.
Is that a thing?
It's like,
I don't know. I think I heard something about that on the news.
I don't know, boss. Yeah, I think that is a real thing. You got to watch out about that. And everyone's just running away after he said it. Everyone's just running. Smart guy. I don't know. Pretty smart guy. He's big brain.
Yeah, he's got an intelligence on him.
Yeah, he's kind of a street smart type dude. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
He's gonna. Well, I mean, he does it. You can put him anywhere on God's green earth, and he's gonna survive.
What's his power ranking in the MCU? Where does he fall? Is he like right below Thor, but like not quite like Captain America? Or like where you think Howard the Duck falls?
For me, I think I would love to see him more on the street level side of the MCU. I'd love to see him get involved with Daredevil and Spider-Man and their face-offs with and stuff. I think that'd be a perfect realm of existence for Howard. It would be. I mean, Spider-Man he was the sales ploy for the very first issue of Howard the Duck solo comic, where they threw Spider-Man on the cover and were like, he appears in this one. You better buy this Howard the Duck book. What's funny is like this movie was it is the first Marvel movie. It was in relatively high demand in comparison.
That's still insane to me. That's insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
I could see him dropping into like with Deadpool and that being kind of cool.
I thought the same thing. Yep.
Yeah. I think Ryan Reynolds. I think they could really trade some wits. I think that'd be funny.
Well, what is cool about? Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just to think of the entire MCU and what it is now, and seeing like what it started as, having Thanos and all these interconnected movies, and now we're going to Kang and have 2025 shit already planned out, and to know that it all started with Howard the Duck. This is where the massive universe that Marvel has built all started, and I don't know. I hope they pay homage to it somehow, like in bring him back in, like legit.
He's already appeared in a couple MCU things. He was in Guardians of the Galaxy in a very, very brief cameo where he just pops up for a second and he says something like, "You know what they say, once you go duck," and then they like cut away. But what I really like, he's in What If. He starts
episode
voiced by Seth Green modernly. And he actually has a really, that's what's also interesting is that when it comes to the adaptation part of our rating, it'll do rather well. They maintain the spirit of this character really, really concisely. He is this smart ass duck man. He's I mean, I don't think we get BoJack Horseman without Howard the Duck, if I'm being for real.
And Howard the Duck really set the foundation for almost all of Hollywood moving forward. Yeah, this George Lucas just really finds a way. Even if the movie didn't pop off, he really he walked so that everything else could fly.
A massive influence on 2002's Scooby-Doo. Obviously the greatest film that's ever existed.
Possibly. Short list.
Without a doubt. Yeah. Without a doubt.
But I do think we are ready for the rating section, so I'll explain it for everybody and our guest here. I know I gave you a nice little rundown via a nice little document, nice little bit of homework for everybody who plans on being a guest, so watch out. But we've got 4 separate ratings. We've got our enjoyment rating, which is incredibly subjective, entirely subjective, and it's just how much the movie's resonating with us, how much we dig it on a scale of 1 to 10. We've also got genre rating. And this will find itself in this, since they're all superhero movies, we go with like subgenres sort of. So this has got that superhero, sci-fi, comedy, I think is like, this would be a comedy for sure.
See, IMDb gives it a good old action adventure comedy. Mm-hmm. So,
no sci-fi. We've got a duck from outer space,
I guess like not. The laser, it was a real laser built on Earth, and that's really how physics works now. That's come on, everyone knows you shoot a laser out into space and you teleport some dark overlords or some ducks every now and then. So
every once in a while, you might find yourself the way the feather fell down from from space right into the lab. But we've also got the adaptation rating, and we didn't want our critical or enjoyment ratings to depend on how good of an adaptation it was. Sometimes you get movies that are bad adaptations, but really good movies, and you get really good adaptations that are really bad movies. And this one's probably closer to that good adaptation, bad movie side of things. And then we've got the critical rating. That's all things considered: filmmaking, acting, writing, score, if applicable. I don't recall much of the score here.
Yeah,
and just all things that go into critically making a movie. We rate that there, and I have a feeling that might be where this movie starts to get a little weaker. But enjoyment-wise, how are we feeling about Howard the Duck?
Well, we got Batman 66 out of 5. So middle of the road, we said Batman 66 was, and I don't think this was really middle of the road. I think it's like the floor. I think is like or maybe it is right around a 6-ish, or maybe like 6.5. Possibly.
It's kind of where I was thinking, Dad, I gave you the homework, and, I was kind of thinking for our guests, since I do give them that sort of rundown of how we do our ratings, maybe giving them a chance to rate the movie on their own, and then we get our own rating on the side, because obviously me and Joe, we've been doing this for like several.
Yeah, you have kind of an established type of foundation set as to, so you can compare it like he was just doing, right? Like, well, we gave, this is what we gave Batman, so, and that makes sense. For me, I mean, on the enjoyment portion, because I can't make anything easy. it's like I want to combine two of them. I want to combine like 7. Oh, I'm liking this with a 2 and may never watch it again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I really liked it, but I very well may never watch it again.
And that has its place. That has its place.
So, so maybe, maybe that brings it down to a 6, but it wasn't like, I enjoyed it. There was some nostalgia there. I tried not to compare it to how much I enjoyed it when I was young, because it was like, oh yeah, for whatever reason, obviously didn't have great taste, but it was enjoyable, and I could see myself not ever watching it again. I mean, I hadn't watched it since I was young. I watched it for this project.
Yeah,
So
right.
what are the odds I'm going to go ahead and be like, you know what I feel like tonight? I'm gonna watch Howard the fucking Duck, man.
Yes.
Let's go.
Yes.
Well,
and I think I personally, in the scale I gave you, I do think that brings it down to a 6. Cause 5 I made it like don't love it, don't hate it, right down the middle
of the road. Yeah.
6 is where I would put like it's an above average movie. I might not ever watch it again,
right.
So I do think 6 is fair, and that's about where I was landing anyway. I don't think I go, oh, I'm liking this or nothing like this, but I did have fun watching it. I had a really good time, and I maybe even 6.5, maybe I climb a little bit with it. I just thought it was fun.
Yeah. You think?
I don't know. Here, let me take a good old look-see.
The next up, Superman 2 was a 7.
I'm gonna go 6. I'm gonna go 6.
Okay.
Can't put it over. Yeah.
I can't confidently go, a half point less than a great Superman movie.
Right.
Yeah.
No, 100. And that makes you think, man, do you maybe put it at a 5 then, right? Because, not to get off subject, but wasn't Superman 2 the one where the, I'm horrible with remembering characters, but like the three or four people that could fly that were all in black.
Yes. General Zod and the other Kryptonians from the Phantom Zone.
That was a great movie, actually. I remember watching that when I was young, thinking, man, this is awesome.
And it was pretty awesome. And that's the thing, though, is that I do find myself, like he said a little bit ago, Batman 66 was out of 5. I do find myself enjoying this more than I liked Batman 66.
Okay, so 6 is a happy medium there.
I think Howard the Duck middle ground is actually the perfect middle between Superman 2 and Batman 66.
Somehow
Superman
we
2,
always find these things.
It's like it had the bones, everything was there, but they just kind of fell on the villain side, even though the villains were really cool. It was just kind of weak for some reason. And then like Batman 66, kind of the same thing. They had all the villains there, but then they were all just kind of a little weak-ish. Howard the Duck
This movie had a villain.
Yeah, a villain. Man, it just comes down to the villain, I guess, because this villain.
A movie is only as good as its villain is, and like I don't think that affects enjoyment so much. It will affect our critical rating, and it did affect our critical rating on a few of the other ones. But I think 6 ends up being a happy medium here for us, genre-wise, out of 10 for an action adventure comedy for this Howard the Duck shit. I think it knew what it was, and I think it did a pretty good job at it. I think they took some big swings, bigger than they probably should have. But I do think for the most part it paid off. I end up probably falling again, maybe even more towards 7.5 sort of thing here.
7.5 says that it did better genre-wise than Superman 2.
All right, so maybe I just again go 7.
About on the same level as Superman 2. So I mean, good. Superman 2 had, I guess the bones were there. The villain just kind of suffered, and here it's kind of the same exact thing. The action itself, I guess. Do you really put that on the same level as Superman 2? I mean, as far as action can go with a duck and just humans, like they did a very good job. Like
they did a pretty good job. You are talking me down a little bit, and I do hear you here. I do think that maybe this is where I actually end up falling more around 6.5.
That's where I was at the very beginning. I don't think it's quite a 6, but a 6.5 seems about right. It was okay. It wasn't hysterical, but it got me to nose exhale a couple times, got a little chuckles out of me. Even still today. So I mean, it holds pretty well, holds up pretty well. And the action, was okay. And I guess it's a storyline that I've never, I guess, thought of before. So it was quite
certainly very
quite
creative,
adventurous. So yeah,
very original.
I think 6.5 is fair.
Yeah, I struggle with it because, like, my first instinct is to say, yeah, this movie knew what it was.
Yeah.
And so that brings it up, even though it obviously didn't knock it out of the park or even, but I don't think in the beginning they knew that this is, you know what I mean? So I've struggled because I don't think that they knew what this movie was until you know what I mean? I think they missed it. Yeah, I think they missed it so horribly that, like, then they leaned into it. Like, it's like they learned what it was, you know? But it's still right, probably right around where you guys are. I mean, 6. I mean, because I think they maybe didn't go into it with that intent of, this is what we're going for.
Yeah.
But it was like, well, this is what we got, and here's what we're doing. You know what I mean? Like,
George Lucas was like, I already put $100 million into this.
Yeah,
movie.
exactly.
They could have chose any villain whatsoever. Literally, it's being beamed from space. They chose a Dark Overlord from, there's no reason that they chose a Dark Overlord. It was just, it so happened that that's where they were pointing it when they did another test. Like, it could have been another evil duck. That would have been hilarious if it was just another duck. Like, they kept it pointed right there, no reason to move it, and they just fired it up again. It's like, oh, evil duck.
Yeah, or like a duck, like his rival growing up that stole his girlfriend or something, or his duck friend, his female duck friend. Like, he's like, man, I can't even get away from this guy on Earth. Now he's coming down to Earth and we got beef.
Yeah, and now he's like coming through, and now he's like really, really aggressively hitting on Beverly, Leah Thompson.
Oh man, or like he's having flashbacks.
That's the Donald, like that. They make that one the Donald duck, like maybe like super close to Donald, but not really, like Donnie or something like that. And talks more like a duck, and that, oh man, that could have been, I don't know why they chose a Dark Overlord of everything, but
made him like Ronald Duck.
Ronald.
Ron, they called him Ronnie. And not to stay on the Dark Overlord stuff, that was just ugly looking. Like, I mean, like, just and I don't know if it was a sign of that time, and maybe you guys, since you watched Star Wars and stuff more recently than I have, but it just seemed really bad looking optically.
Well, there's something really interesting that we can compare it to almost directly from Return of the Jedi, which was 3 years earlier, and it's the Rancor monster that Luke faces off with, and it doesn't look too different from what this is, as far as literally the build out of the creature. The visual effects on it, though, are infinitely worse. And you do have the fact that Star Wars Return of the Jedi is the third movie and the biggest franchise of all time at the time. It probably had a much larger budget, a lot more room to work with there. But nevertheless, it just it did look really bad, like they didn't, and there was something about it that looked. The thing about the Rancor and Star Wars is that it was practical, like they built that thing, they made it like a miniature, and they visual effects everything in. And I think you can get notes of that here too. I do think this is almost certainly a actual thing they built and then just scaled it up like crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can tell like the stop motion. Like there's a little bit of stop motion. There was a little bit of a lot of the 80s like VFX that they normally use at the time.
Right.
For it, but not terrible, but for the time,
not great looking.
Yeah, they could have done better for the, I don't know, $37 million they spent on it. Like, I don't know if that $37 million is adjusted or if that's like they spent $37 million worth of $87 or $1987. That's, I don't know, that's kind of nuts. But
I think it's the real number. I mean, I think that's not adjusted for what it's worth now. I think they spent upwards of 30.
That's nuts.
in $86, $87. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. But yeah, I don't think. Again, I think that will inevitably affect our critical rating. But first up, we'll do adaptation, and because me and Joe got
I yield to you guys on this. Yeah, you guys.
I figured such would be the case.
Wow, it's about $100 million today. If you adjust it, If you adjust it, it's about 100
Yeah.
million today. That's insane.
I was literally
Wow.
typing it into my as you gave that off. I was wondering, wow, 100 mil. Wow.
Well, yeah, that's well, and what's interesting is like by comparison, at the time, like Empire Strikes Back and Star Wars, they did have actual budgets of $100 million at the time.
Wow.
So like it was it's an insane amount of money now too, but like adjusted for inflation. So like even the first and second Star Wars movie had three times as much money into it as this did. So like if that gives you any frame of reference for how the effects might have turned out as they did. But adaptation wise, I actually think this one fares rather well. It maintains the spirit of the comics in a way that's really, really entertaining. It's one of the things that I wasn't expecting from it, because when I looked up like comic book influences and tried to see what was going on there wasn't a lot that was coming up. It was just kind of like like, this isn't an adaptation of any kind. You know, the Dark Overlords aren't a thing in Marvel Comics. It's not a thing that exists. It's just kind of there. Now with Howard the Duck, though, they did maintain a very, very clear spirit of the character, and they did bring a lot of stuff from the comics into the movie. You know, the Master of Quack Fu stuff, the Duck World. He did come from Duck World, calling the humans hairless apes. Like they maintained that character in a way that was very, very honest to the source material, and I think it did pretty well there. But like we've done with previous movies, when the villains aren't adapted in an incredibly well done way, it does take a hit. How you feeling?
I think it is right on par with like where Superman 2 and Batman are. It's like they did well as far as like the main character goes, and you know that's kind of the most important thing. But villain is, you know, your hero can only be or can only shine as, you know, grand as your villain is. So I think it's around there, a 7. You know, if it didn't, I can't say it did any worse or better than them, really, I'd say.
I get you. Yeah, no, I was right there. 7 is where I was at, because the exact same reasons. It did maintain the character's spirit, but it's if you're gonna adapt a movie original villain, this has been our beef with Supergirl. It was our beef with Superman 3. It's got to come to play. You can't just, like, you have so many villains to choose from in Marvel Comics and even in Howard the Duck comics. Like, I don't know why you decided to implement the Dark Overlords. It was just a bold choice. So I think it's fair to give it a little bit of a dink there and just bring it down to 7. But that does bring us to critical rating. And like we were just saying, a movie is only as good as its villain. And, you know, I think that generalization is a bit of a stretch, but this probably won't fare the best critically. I would say that while it was very enjoyable,
is it better made than Supergirl?
I can't confidently tell you yes.
It's almost, I think it's about on the same level as far as like the literal camera work and whatever. But like, this wasn't as cringy as Supergirl was, if that makes sense. Like Supergirl was, I guess, more like they weren't aware that it was bad and they thought that it was good. So like that was like where the cringe came in a little bit. Is like that they didn't really know that they missed the mark, but they thought that they were kind of hidden.
They were the last one to find out, type of deal.
Yeah,
exactly.
But here,
so for context, what did you guys give Supergirl?
Just 3.
Okay.
For Supergirl.
What's funny is I was on the scale I provided for my dad here. 3 was it's a truly bad movie. 4 is it had the bones but didn't get there. Right? Do I have that right?
Yes.
I find myself
didn't get there.
I find myself very much so splitting that difference. It's well on its way to being a truly bad movie, but I do think it had the bones. You know what I'm saying? Like it had it was just it had a lot of elements that could have been very, very. I think if you pretty much do exactly this story modernly, I probably do weigh it a little bit more fairly. It's just that like the outrageous visual effects and the corruption of Dr. Jennings and stuff. I think you could have pulled that off way better in a modern context. And I mean, there's also the fact that Beverly is for some reason so desperate that she would fall in love with the duck.
She's down for the duck.
Hey, I mean, that's the only one on Earth. She's the only one that can say that she hooked up with Howard the Duck. No one else can. I mean, or about to hook up with
there's
him.
a certain.
I guess they didn't actually.
Yeah, they got walked in on, which was also,
Damn.
Frankly, like, who's
he wasn't
walking into apartments and shit? Come on, Tim Robbins.
He also wasn't ready for it. He was like, "Oh, actually, I don't really feel good. I need to get my aspirin." Yeah,
bitched out.
He realized. Yeah, he realized when the time was there. It's like, nah, this ain't for me. I can't
do the four-legged interspecies cha-cha.
Yeah.
But if you are splitting the difference there for a 4 and a 3, it does put it right where we gave Superman 3 critically. Which actually kind of makes sense because it's kind of the same thing. It's like a cool hero, but the villain was just kind of meh and weird and out of place. But that's right where I was. I was like, it's Supergirl with a little bit of a bump, like a slight bump. And so I mean, yeah, I think 3.5 is very fair. Averages it out to a 5.75, which is a little better than Batman 66.
Right.
At a 5.25. Let's see, it's still worse than Superman, obviously, at a 9.38. Superman 2 is a 6.75. But then it is Howard the Duck in third place.
Right where it belongs, baby.
Top
3 so far.
Top 3 out of 6. So it's in the top half.
It will not be top 3 forever, but it's top 3 for now. And I have the feeling that next week it will remain top 3 if any of the reviews about Superman 4 are to be believed.
So yeah, let's provide a teaser then. What other ones you got on the list then? If you're doing 10, you got 6, and you're doing like 10 of these, or
Dad, 10. This man over here. We've got like 100 of these planned.
Well, wait though, aren't you separating them in little subsets though, or no? It's just going to be
it's just week after week until we decide we can't do this anymore, and it's
okay.
So
yeah, then it will not be 3 forever. Yeah, if you're rocking 100 movies,
it will
for
not.
This.
Okay. And that's the thing.
So Superman 4 is next. Superman 4 is
plans to go until the latest release comic book movie at the end. Okay. It is from the Batman 66 to the latest released, which at the time is probably like it'll be somewhere in the range of what's the
Avengers,
June, summer 2025. So
we plan on running this for a while. That's why we're recording so far in advance, trying to like build up a backlog. No, it's a super fun and very like we were like, all right, we got warmed up with the 52-year journey through film. We were like, let's do a week after week. Let's build up a whole catalog. And we were like, all right, well, what if we just did that for like 3 fucking years, dude? Yeah. So next week we got Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. The week after that, we'll be joined by Blaine Rezach for Batman 89 with starring Michael
Keaton. Yeah.
And he's the host of DCEU on repeat and MCU on repeat, so a nice little crossover for podcasts there.
I can already tell you my favorite line from Batman 89.
Oh yeah, what's that?
This town needs an enema. Joker says that. And I was 12 at the time, didn't know what enema was, but I thought it was hilarious.
I thought it was hilarious.
Is that a Tony Montana line as well? Or is that a...
No, I think that's strictly Jack as Joker. Town needs an enema. Vicky Vale. I mean, that's a good movie, dude.
Oh yeah, that one will fare well on our on our ratings. But the week after that, we got the sequel to it, Batman Returns, and with the return of Batman, we'll see the return of Tavares Pennington for this podcast. He'll be back on for that episode at least. The founder, Tavares Pennington, the penny to my bloom. And then the week after that, Batman Mask of Phantasm. We got a Batman run coming up because they were the only superhero movies released for several years. Batman Mask of Phantasm with the Yubcast. They're a Star Wars animation podcast. So it was felt fitting that they'd come on for the Batman animated movie that we've got on the list. So that's all I'll tease for now, but that's about the next month of what you can be expecting from us for this comic book journey through film. And man, so this movie shook out to a 58% on the tomato meter. Do we know what it is on Rotten Tomatoes?
Yes. The audience score gave it a 38, and the critical review is a 14. Although the critical one, it's only 81 reviews. That's only 81 people in the world. But yeah, audience giving it around a 40%, and that's 50K rating. So.
All right. That's a little bit more believable. Yeah. Well, if that's 38% on Rotten Tomatoes, it's 47% on IMDb, and we gave it a 58%. So we just kept rocking 10 above the next after each one, which feels fitting. Feels fitting for us. We're typically pretty kind to movies. And we spice our ratings up with a little bit of the enjoyment factor. So it gives it a little bit of our flair. So 58% for Howard the Duck. Man. What a movie. What a time to be alive. Hell yeah. If you would, head to patreon.com/PennyBloomPod where you'll find over 50 hours of exclusive content. Book reviews, comic book reviews, movie reviews if we're not reviewing it on the pod. We're doing this project right now, and if there's a new superhero movie, it's not getting covered until it lines up with this project. It'll be over on patreon.com/PennyBloomPod if you're gonna catch it. That's for $3 a month. Helps out the podcast like crazy. Costs money, and I don't make any off of it unless it's over there. So again, patreon.com/PennyBloomPod. If you would, head to Twitter, follow @PennyBloomPod, follow on Instagram @PennyBloomPodcast. Keep up with me and Joe as we keep doing all kinds of shit. We're actually currently doing Winter is Blooming, Game of Thrones rewatch podcast. You're gonna have to catch up with us there. Keep rewatching Game of Thrones with us. I was Colton Robertson. I was joined by Joseph George. Thank you very much, homie.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Oh, and it is always a pleasure to have you. And we were joined by the very special guest, Justin Robertson, my father. Thank you very much, Dad.
Guys, thank you so much for having me. It was my pleasure. I hope I did well enough to warrant a future invite. I'd love to join again.
You shall. I want to get you on for a movie that you haven't seen.
Yeah,
like one of the more modern superhero movies that I feel would be more up your alley. I think that'd be fun. Yeah.
No, I'm not. It was a blast. Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, a lot of fun.
Of course. And with that, remember, peace, love, and bloom. And it's not bad for a duck from outer space.